Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Annalisa and this is going to be my December wrap-up. And yes, I can continue celebrating Christmas 2 weeks into January. But first I'm going to send you to Past Me to review a couple of the books that I read early on in the month. Hey there, so this is earlier in the month, me reviewing a couple of books so that I can give them back to the library and won't forget what they were about. First of all, The Good Luck Girls by Charlotte Nicole Davis. I enjoyed this so much. It was such a quick read. It took me like 3 days because it was so engrossing. Trigger warnings for mentions of and themes of sex trafficking and also slavery, but the way that this was handled was so... there was no graphic description of any of that, and it was much more of the emotional consequences that were dealt with and some PTSD from that, rather than the actual experiences themselves, such that this wasn't painful at all for me to read, but there was enough in there to process that stuff and to raise it as a topic of sex trafficking is a thing and we need to be aware of it and the effect that it has on people and the methods like debt slavery that people use to do it. This is set in another world, I believe, but it is much like a lot of fantasy stories steal the time of medieval or Renaissance era for a different world. This is taking the dress and a fair number of the customs and a lot of the technology of the Old West, and so that's why she's dressed in this very cool outfit. And there is a lot of outlawness and running from the law, but only stealing from bad guys like Robin Hood, but also like a lot of the good outlaw narratives. And I haven't read a lot of those. I've seen more of them on like TV and movies. So it was really fun to read a version of that, and it might be very tropey, but I wouldn't know because I haven't read a whole bunch of those. This is more like something I didn't know I wanted because it is the story of 5 women who have been in a sex trafficking welcome house, and the story starts out with one of them accidentally killing a John. There is a female-female relationship in this. There is also another romance. Neither of them are really central. It is mostly an adventure story, lots of being on the run, and once again, as I may need to mention for a long time after having read Marrow Thieves where they didn't, these people set watches every night because they were on the run. And there's lots of stuff about backtracking and covering where you've been. Also in this book, there isn't color of your skin oriented racism. There is something else where people are dustbloods or freebloods, and dustbloods have had their shadows magically taken away and freebloods haven't, and all of the dustbloods were slaves at one time. Some of them have bought their way out of debt slavery, but most of them can't. So there is a huge difference in the way you treat someone who you can see doesn't have a shadow versus one who does. And that was a really interesting exploration of caste and social order dynamics. Lots of really cool sisterhood relationships, and I just really enjoyed all of the characters and all of the world building. There's a magic system with 3 different types of ghosts and various ways to stop the ghosts from attacking you, and there are also these magic people who get into your mind and mess with you that way, but can't like shoot fireballs or anything. So that was really fun. This is a really awesome book and I highly recommend it. Then I read the 4th volume of Witch, which is the beginning of a new arc. There are like 3 volumes per arc. So 4, 5, and 6 will be this arc, and then they'll start another one. My library doesn't have the 3rd book of the 1st arc, so I'm having to learn a lot about what happened in that one through this one, through context. I might have to buy that one, but this one's been pretty good for giving me the context. But this one has a lot to do with the girls figuring out how to relate to each other when an emergency isn't going on, and also how to deal with some bad things that happened at the end of the last book. And our new arc-long villain has been introduced. The illustrations tend to be quite pastel and soft looking, and they have cool outfits and also get a lot curvier when they turn into their magical selves that have earth, fire, wind, and water powers. The action sequences, not so great, but they're kind of like Power Ranger action sequences where it's clearly more for fun and looking cool than what would actually make strategic sense in a particular situation. But still very pretty illustrations to look at. Back to Future Me. So I also read 2 ebooks and 2 audiobooks during December. The first audiobook was The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. This was a horror, and I am not a horror person. I was very horrified. And it felt like it did a good job of communicating the backstory and the characterization, and the descriptions were quite good. It was quite creepy at the beginning and then kind of went into more less mysterious, more in-your-face gore type stuff later on. Big trigger warnings for lots of things. I will put them in my Storygraph and Goodreads reviews. I talked about it a little bit in my Christmas vlog, but basically it's a very sad book that also has elements of family and community and found family, and I think would be something that a lot of people who like horror would be very into. The other audiobook was A Mixture of Mischief by Anna Mariano. This is the 3rd book in the Love, Sugar, Magic series, and it continues to build on the friendships and family relationships that our main character has. I really liked getting to learn more about the magic system, and I really loved the plot of this one. For me, it was a step up from the last one, which was a step up from the first one, so the series keeps getting better by my idea. So for me, they were like a 3-star, 4-star, 5-star progression, so I was really, really happy with that. It is about baking magic and this family of brujas who uses it and has a bakery, and it's a big family with lots of relationships within it and lots of complications, and these books tend to have at least a little bit of a mystery element, figuring out what's going on with various types of magic, and I found those really fun. Then I also read Take a Hint, Dani Brown by Talia Hibbert. I really liked the first book in this series, which was Get a Life, Chloe Brown. I really loved the chronic illness, fibromyalgia representation. I felt like it was done really well. I really loved the dynamic that added to the relationship, but I also really loved the whole grumpy grump person with a really happy, looks on the bright side, finds a lot of things funny person, and we got that in the second book as well. We had a bit of a grump anti-love because she's been hurt in the past heroine with a looking for love, optimistic marshmallow hero. What's that called? Cinnamon roll. And I really liked that. Definitely identified with Dani a lot less than with Chloe, because Dani is more of the OCD ADHD neurodivergent type thing, which isn't something that I personally have difficulties with, but I did like seeing that, and it was also addressed how that impacted the romantic relationship. But the part that was more difficult for me to get is that Dani has this, I don't want to have a romantic relationship because I've been hurt in the past, and she expects everybody she gets with to go along with that, without actually finding out if they're that type of person first. And to me, it would make more sense if she used that hookup-only dating app that a character in This Town Sleep used, who wanted long-term relationships but used a hookup app. I think she should have been the one using the hookup app, and he should have been the one dating people from work. But I did really like the exploration of the hero's character and all the stuff going on with him. He runs a program combining sports with coaching young men to deal with their emotions and not hide them and to take care of their mental health, and I really like that. Oh, also there was a mention of a romanticism in this book, which is really cool. Usually romance books completely ignore A-spec people's existence, so that was cool, and I did end up, and I did ship it. It was very easily shippable from the character's dynamic. Then we have The Bride Test by Helen Huang, which is a book that comes after The Kiss Quotient, which is another book that I absolutely adored. I've read it a bunch of times. I really love the autism representation and also the way it handled touch aversion and generally the dynamic between the characters and all the familial relationships. And I also really like this one cousin character named Quan, who is in The Bride Test the main character's brother rather than cousin, so we got to see more of him, and once again he was a huge awesome hero character of the book, despite not being one of the, you know, people who gets together. So I'm hoping that the next one will be about him because I love him. But I like this one too. This one is about Kai, who is the autistic cousin of the hero from the first book, and is about his mom arranging for a Vietnamese girl to come meet him and try to figure out if they're a good match to get married. So it's a bit like an arranged marriage trope where they're arranged by outside forces to live together, not all the way to get married, but the living together part. But the way it starts out with the mother being super pushy about getting this man who has told her he doesn't want a romantic relationship to get this relationship is very aphobic, and it's not really addressed as such. It's shown as overbearing, but it's never brought up that there are reasons other than trauma, and the reason that Kai doesn't want a relationship like this is trauma. We find that out pretty much at the beginning. It's not addressed that there are other reasons that people might not want a relationship. They might just be that way. And mothers need to not force their children to live with people if they don't want to. And single people don't need to be harangued. So it was a little bit difficult to ship at first because I really wanted the mother to be foiled. But right away, the heroine, who is brought from Vietnam, is very sympathetic and very likable, and you root for her. You don't necessarily root for her to get together with Kai right away, but you want her to succeed in some way. And the book does address the whole mail order bride thing with this woman is kind of forced to marry this man because she is totally poor at home and needs to get married to get a green card or to have money to feed her family, and how that's not totally, you know, consent. And we got to see the various ways that this woman, who already had a 5-year-old daughter back home as well as a mother and grandmother to take care of, could find her own way in the US by taking classes and getting hooked up with other immigrants who had already been established. And so I really appreciated that. And I also liked the working through of the different cultures, because although Kai's family is Vietnamese, he's at least the second generation who's been in the US, and so he already has quite a different culture from this woman who has lived in Vietnam her whole life, as well as being autistic. But I liked it quite a bit, not as much as the Kiss Quotient, but it was pretty great and gave me an even bigger crush on Quan. And then the last book that I read during this month was Once Upon an Eid, and as promised by the various people I saw review it, it gave me all the wonderful, cozy, familial, loving holiday vibes, and also taught me quite a bit about how people celebrate Eid and their different experiences with different types of families. Some of them are a bit dark in pieces with people dealing with grief and loss, but they all definitely fit the description of stories of hope and joy, and it was just a lovely read. I'm also currently reading several things like Snow and Rose, River of Royal Blood, so you'll be seeing my reviews of those in a couple weeks. I hope you're having a really wonderful new year so far. If you've already finished some books this year, I'd love to know about them, whether you like them, and I'd also like to know if your Christmas decorations are still up. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!